have this for you guys. All right, so this is the intent of this is I've termed this one EQ over IQ, and little did I know that there would be through our distance learning stuff that we've got. There actually are a lot of, if you've looked at any of those things there's a ton of resources out there about emotional intelligence and kind of reaching kids, especially in these uncertain times with the distance learning. And so one of the things, actually, I checked out one of them earlier this morning, which was with the that was the one that I did which was on the connections before compliance. What's essential was a really good one. And actually, had I known that one was going to be there prior to this, I probably would have maybe just skipped on this one. But what this is looking at is distance learning, and honestly, from me, this is a big growth point for me because I had to take a look at kind of my own teaching practices because I noticed a lot of my kids were starting to drop off with this distance learning and why that was. And so I think looking at it for me, I was coming up from more of a compliance side of it than a connection side of it, and so had to make some changes into some of the things that I was doing on how I was reaching these kids. And so in a nutshell, we kind of put out that in middle school at Southwest, a lot of kids have figured out that it doesn't matter. They're going to go on to the next grade, whether we do anything or say anything, whether they complete the work or don't complete the work. And so some kids have checked out. And so how do you get them back? How do you get that or make that connection? I'll be honest, I went about it starting out in this distance learning the wrong way, and I've had to reevaluate my own teaching and policies and how I do stuff and kind of come back at it a different way. I started hey, if you don't do this assignment, you're going to get a bad grade. You're going to, you might not pass my class. Then it comes to, does it really matter if they pass my class? And in a nutshell, no, it doesn't. Nobody's going to repeat 6th grade or 7th grade because they didn't do my automation robotics class or my circuits electronics class. So looking at making more connections. Some of the resources that I'm going to share with you guys, I'm going to put in here. We're going to talk about some of that stuff. So the first one that we've got is going to be looking at some emotional intelligence lessons and things that you guys can do that I found that have really helped me. It's called EQ in Your PJs. These are things that you can share or do with students. And so I'm putting these things up as you guys are going through. You can kind of look at this stuff. EQ in Your PJs has got lots of really cool lessons. They're geared. They say they're high school, but you can really look at them and see how do you come up with these. It's got lessons on managing stress before it manages you, how to navigate relationships in tight quarters. That's something that I've had to do. My wife travels, typically 4 or 5 days a week. And I think that's part of why she wanted me to go to Augusta and quarantine with my son, is to get some space and get out of here. But there's some really cool resources that you can find from this School Connect. We have, and I'm going to share my screen here with you guys so you can see some of this stuff. Let me get in here and present my screen here so you guys can see some of this stuff that we've got here. Peridek is another kind of a really cool way that you guys can get, and I'm not running a pair, but Peridek has an entire section of content that's in Google Slides that's to under social emotional learning. So if you have a Google slide deck that you're doing or going to do a Peridek, under this learning development, they have a section called social emotional learning. And I picked one of those slides just to kind of show you guys, which is a stress check. Peridek has some really cool slides that you can put into your slides that get checks of where your kids are at, what's filling your bucket, where's your stress at, how are you feeling, what are the things that you're doing, are you is this, are you in a good spot, bad spot, where are you at? So those are some slides or some things that you could definitely throw in with your Peridek teachings. And this would be one that if you just did, even if you just put this out to your kids as a check of where you're at. For me, I'm looking at some of my lessons. Next week, I've got a lesson that I'm doing with my kids I'm just asking them I'm giving them a grade. They just do a video check-in with me, come to one of my meet, because I've seen some of my kids are starting to come off, and I'm just having them, they have to tell me a joke. That's it. It has to be a school appropriate joke, but their assignment is they got to do Google Meet with me, say hi, and tell me a joke. And that's their assignment for next week. So there's no content delivery that they're going to have to do for that day or for that assignment. It's just trying to reestablish or get those connections back in there with them. And so Google Connected or Google Meet is another great resource that you guys could use for this. I'm going to share another one with you, which is, this is not stuff that I did, that I've got. It's stuff that I found. Here's another resource that I'm putting into our chat box there. These are, this is actually out of Ohio. And what this is it's emotional intelligence activities for teens. And you could look through and share this stuff where we're at with it. It gives kids an opportunity to where are they at on the line, late on the line. There's name game today, I feel. Some really cool activities that you might want to try to do or get with your kids. So those are some options of social emotional intelligence or things that you can do. This one is from Casel. So this is, I'm going to share another resource into our meeting for you guys here. This one through Casel, if you go to that third one, has got, how do you, attending to your own well-being, promoting social emotional learning, reflection, what are things that you can do to come back. Other techniques that you guys could use, Google Classroom, asking a question, how do you feel? And I'll go back to and we'll present again and show you guys what, some options or some things that you can do when you're in Google Classroom with it. So if I go to one of the classes, and we'll just go to and show you guys here one of my, like if I went to a Google Fundamentals classroom. So what I can do is you can create a question and just do a check-in. How are you feeling? How are you feeling today? Right? If you want to do this. I got this. Let me get this spelled right here. My text is, my fingers are going faster than where we're at. Students can answer a short answer. Tell me how you are doing, right? And so then what you can do here with this, the students can answer this. I can give it a grade if I want to. Typically, I find that you could get you'd get more response, whether it is a grade or not a grade. Where you can choose in your options is, do you want students to reply to each other? I find I get the most authentic responses from my students when they're not looking at or seeing each other's answers or viewing or seeing what each other are doing. So when I keep it just between us, those kinds of things. So that would be, but again, it's, your students, your pulse, kind of where you're at. Back to kind of that distance learning stuff. One of the sessions I looked at this morning through the Minnesota Distance Learning is just knowing your kids and having those relationships and taking time to kind of reestablish or get those. I've made some connections with my kids. I've got kids that aren't doing any work, and just talking to them like, hey, how's it going? What can I do to help? If you're not going to we're not even talking about the assignments or the missing work or those kinds of things. Two more resources, and we'll kind of open it up, get you guys some questions if you want, because these are kind of quick tidbits here. So this one that I'm going to share is a quick free emotional intelligence test that you can take. Now, what you have to do with this one is it does ask for some information at the end of it. It takes about 10 minutes, gives you a series of, I think it's 20 questions. What you can do with the emotional intelligence is really looking at how are you are you above average, below average, and really this is how do you respond to with your emotions, recognizing other people's emotions and how your actions impact their beliefs or their emotions. And what you do with this is it does ask you for some questions at the bottom, ask you for an email address, so that you can get some information from them. Not a ton of spam or anything like that, but it is a free option that you can do. This is something that if you wanted to, I mean, you could even have your kids do this, because the questions are pretty generic in that. You don't need to have access to your email, like your responses come back without it. So what I would do is, if you wanted to have your students do it, they could put your email address in here. And so then if there was solicitation, that it would go to you, the teacher, not necessarily to the students, where you could look at that. And then the last piece that I've got that I wanted to kind of share with you guys, I did this because this is an area that I need to work on, both in my personal relation, and that's a big deal for me to acknowledge that not always the most emotionally aware with my emotional intelligence. But there's a company called TalentSmart that really is kind of on the front edge of emotional intelligence development and awareness. And you can take this, you can do a test. When I took it, it was $49, I believe, for the online version of the test. It was actually kind of fun because you get access to an emotional intelligence test. The test takes about 35 minutes, gives you goals to work on, ways that you can get on it. One of the areas for me that I am working on, or that was identified that I need to work on, is how my actions or the things that I do impact others. And so sometimes I'll make decisions or do things or put things together that doesn't necessarily take into consideration others' emotions or how they're going to feel about it. And so that recognizing others and how my actions impact others is a weakness for me. And so with this TalentSmart, you can see videos. They actually have some really cool videos that are taken from movie clips of situations that are kind of humorous and fun. And you can get some real in-depth, if you want, insightful information about you or where you're at. They even have options where you can have others rate you a little bit more when you get into kind of the 360 feedback, is what they call that. The price of the test goes up to about $200 to get 360 feedback. I just did where I took the test, answered it, and then give you goals, feedback, things that you can work on, and access to their resources about emotional intelligence. And so again, that's kind of the paid resources there. A lot of what people get from this, or that they're seeing or getting from emotional intelligence right now, especially with the distance learning, is we got to find ways to connect before we try to get something out of them. They got to know how much you care before they care how much you know. And so there's a couple of things that I've gotten from it. So if you're just trying to get assignments out of them, and it's just do your work, you're going to notice a significant drop off with your kids and the amount of work that they're getting back, especially with this distance learning, because we got to have some check-ins. And so my balance for me is I'm doing some fun lessons that really aren't meaningful. There's no content at all. It's just, like I said, I've got one next week. My kids, they get a grade telling me, just checking in and saying hi. That's an assignment. That's a grade for them. So you got to figure out where that balance is for you. Questions, comments, anything anybody, Brianna, Stephanie, that you want to add that I missed, I didn't get?
I think you hit it totally spot on with this one and the one this morning. I just wish, hopefully we never have to do this again, but if we did, that we could start differently. I think that the whole process has been a lot different than everyone expected, with even like the connection stuff, how much the learning curve of the technology was for the kids sometimes. And that added to the staff stress. And I think that then adults like resort back to what they know, and what we know is, all right, let's get your work done.
Yep.
So hopefully we never have to experience this again, but if we do, we're better prepared.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Something that I found after I watched that same training that you referenced, I noticed with a lot of my kids, just them being able to see me in my real life situation, you know, my kid that pops in every once in a while and screams, and my dog, and, you know, just them being able to see that and also empathize with them, you know, that I'm having a lot of the same emotions they are, you know, that, okay, adults struggle too, and it's okay to struggle. And this is real life, you know, it's made the relationships that much stronger.
Yeah, and I'll take kind of back to Steph's. You know, I've got some kids. I'll be honest with you, and this is a big deal for me to kind of admit, especially recording it. But I lost some relationship with kids with this distance learning, and so kind of this emotional intelligence really had to look at and assess and come back around full circle, because when we started this distance learning, I was coming from a standpoint of compliance. Like, hey, here's your weekly assignment. If you're not going to do your assignments, you're not going to get the grades. And there are some kids that I'll be honest with you, that I haven't heard from in 2 weeks, and I don't know that I am going to hear from them over the duration of the distance learning. I'm trying to reach out and trying to get that, but I came at it from the wrong angle when we first started the distance learning, and I've had to adjust and change my practice to do more of the connection over compliance, which, again, if I had done it differently, I think I'd had more buy-in than what I'm doing now on the back end trying to repair. Other thoughts, ideas, anything that people and again, this is not, there's a ton of stuff out there. I just kind of have been sifting my personal journey, just gave you the stuff that I've put in, that I found. That the free emotional intelligence test is really cool. When you get done with it, you can even put it when you put in your email, it'll give you a where you're at and kind of areas to work on. So it gives you like a paragraph blurb of it. And you can take the test again and answer and see different things of it. So it does give you some pretty good data on it. I don't know that you necessarily need. I went to the paid version because, like I said, I damaged some relationship with some students, and I really need to figure out how to get that back, or what I can do to kind of bring that back around. And so, with kind of how I started out my distance learning journey and the changes that I need to make. But there's some. So the paid ones, I like it, but it's not a have to do. Just gives you more with the paid version goals that I can work on, and kind of more of a, this is where you're at towards your goal. The free one just tells you, hey, this is where you're at. Here's some things to work on, and you can make your own goals as you come up with it. There's lots of resources out there, lots of cool things, features that you can do. And the biggest thing is if anything in your Google Meets, your things, develop a connection with them. Don't start just writing your content. How are you doing today? What's going on? What's happening at your house? What's happening in your neck of the woods? Really, for me, I've set up some that are just nothing more than, hey, let's just talk, hang out, see what's going on, because these kids need those relationships, and those are things, honestly, I was taking for granted. I was doing that when we're in the classroom and figuring out and knowing about them, but in the distance learning arena, I've really just I'm down to business, I went about it I'm trying to be respectful of your time, so I'm just going to give you the nuts and bolts. This is what you need to do to get your assignments done. We're on the back end. That's not the right approach, because it didn't come across as caring or empathetic, and not sharing, like what Brianna was saying, the real situation. And, this is what I'm dealing with and what I've got going on. Anything else? I mean, this is a quick, short, and easy, really just sharing some information with you guys.
I think the School Connect has a lot of you guys should check that one out. That one has a lot of cool picture stuff. I don't know if they're wall decals or what, but I've bookmarked over the last couple of years a lot of their stuff that I'd like to print and hang up. I just never.
Whose stuff is this?
The School Connect one, the top one.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah. They do, and they say a lot of their lessons in that School Connect say that they're for high school, but I found that they really do. It really does go down 6th grade. Now you can change some of it. Now what they do is some of their stuff, and when they initially put these videos out in their previous lesson, they'll hide the answer to, which will unlock the next video. Now you can get to all the videos now, but they tried to set their social emotional connection. the one on navigating tight spaces, you know, I've given that to my kids, and I've used that for myself, just my family, because having 2 kids, you know, now we're all separated out, but for a while there, we were 4 of us trying to jockey for space. And I don't know if any of you know this or not, but I'm kind of a loud individual. So even when I've been banished to the kitchen, my wife can hear me 3 rooms away. And so trying to manage and work through those things has taken a lot of emotional intelligence on all parts.
Well, I just want to tell you, Burke, this was really good. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank
really
you.
good information, and yeah, emotional intelligence